Man detecting metal stops dead in his tracks after uncovering a strange relic in the soil. It's winter in Jelling, Denmark, and Ole Ginnerup Schytz is trying out a new hobby. Walking through a field owned by a former classmate, he scans his metal detector hopefully over the long grass. Suddenly, the machine begins to beep, revealing something that'll change his life for good. Centuries ago, this region was one of great cultural significance, a place where both Nordic pagans and early Christians once thrived. But today, few would suspect this quiet Danish village of hiding an incredible secret, one that's turned the world of archaeology on its head. So what exactly did this amateur detectorist find? Some 1,500 years ago, a volcano erupted in Iceland, creating wide-ranging chaos across all of Scandinavia. And in response, the region's despairing inhabitants left offerings to appease the angry gods. Now, in the 21st century, archaeologists are uncovering these treasure troves and learning more about the Nordic people of long ago. Was this what Schytz found unexpectedly buried beneath his friend's field? Or was it something else, a relic from the nearby Jelling Mounts, perhaps, or treasure dating back to the reign of Gorm the Old? Well, according to experts, it's one of the most important discoveries ever unearthed on Danish soil. To even the most casual observer, it's easy to see why Schytz chose Jelling as the site for his treasure hunt. After all, the small village, located some 150 miles west of the Danish capital Copenhagen, is steeped in history dating back long before the Viking Age. As such, it must have seemed a promising spot to try out his new metal detector. In fact, it's for these historical connections that Jelling, nowadays a somewhat unremarkable place, is mostly known. Back in the 10th century, you see, it was the royal seat of a king, known as Gorm the Old. Together with his son, Harald Bluetooth, he was responsible for uniting the kingdom of Denmark together under one ruler. According to legend, Gorm was the son of Harthacnut, a semi-mythical figure allegedly descended from the folk hero Ragnar Lodbrok. A Norseman, he's believed to have arrived in the region towards the beginning of the 10th century, deposing the reigning monarch and taking control of western Denmark. After Harthacnut died, the story goes, Gorm became king in his stead, establishing a seat at Jelling. From there, he ruled over a vast territory, the size of which is still debated today, though most believe that it was limited to the peninsula of Jutland. Later, though, his son Harald would go on to conquer all of Denmark. In fact, Harald's one of the key figures in Danish history, credited with uniting the kingdom and bringing the religion of Christianity to the region. During his reign, he erected a large stone covered in runic carvings in honor of his mother and father, and as a monument to all he'd achieved. Today, this monument forms part of a historic site known as the Jelling Mounts. Appearing on the UNESCO World Heritage List, the complex also incorporates a similar structure erected by Gorm in memory of Thyra, his wife. According to experts, the location provides a unique insight into a period when both pagan Nordic and early Christian influences held sway over Denmark. In fact, the stones at Jelling are considered so significant that a depiction of them is seen on the current Danish passport. And they aren't the only things that this historic region has to offer. Surrounding the stones is a series of burial mounds, believed to date, at least partially, all the way back to the Bronze Age. In other words, this quiet village in the Danish countryside is a veritable treasure trove for anyone interested in history. So when Schytz decided to try out metal detecting, it must have seemed an obvious choice. After all, his friend owned a field in the area, giving him free rein to test his equipment on the same soil once walked by 10th century kings. But in the end, it wasn't a relic of Gorm the Old or Harald Bluetooth that Schytz found buried beneath modern-day Jelling. Instead, it was something even older. According to reports, while the amateur treasure hunter was scanning the field back in December 2020, his machine alerted him to something of interest below the surface. Apparently, Schytz had only been searching for a matter of hours when his metal detector began to beep. Digging down, he spotted a twisted metal object lodged in the earth and pulled it out for closer inspection. What he'd stumbled upon would turn out to be one of Denmark's greatest archaeological discoveries, though he didn't realize that at the time. It was scratched and covered in mud, Schytz explained in a September 2021 interview with Danish TV channel TV Sid, as translated by Artnet News. I had no idea, so all I could think of was that it looked like the lid of a can of herring. But it wasn't a scrap of useless metal, it was a piece of gleaming gold. Amazingly, Schytz's discoveries didn't end there. As he continued to dig, he unearthed a total of 22 golden objects, which weighed more than 2 pounds altogether. According to ArtNet News, the majority of the artifacts are what's known as bracteates. These are a type of etched necklace found in northern Europe between the 4th and 6th centuries. After studying Schytz's finds, archaeologists were able to determine that they probably date back to the 6th century, towards the end of the Iron Age. Apparently, the bracteates would once have been worn as jewelry or as good luck charms. And, if the strange engravings on the gold are anything to go by, they came from a culture rich in both religion and myth. One piece, for example, features a design of a braided head surrounded by runes. According to the website of the Vigelmuseum in Denmark, experts believe the inscription translates to the high. And though the meaning of this mysterious message isn't clear, some experts suspect that it refers to the Norse god Odin. The pieces tell a slightly different story than the one we see on Gulderne, which is a drinking horn with the stories that belong to drinking groups, the National Museum of Denmark's Peter Vang Petersen told TV Sid. Here we see Nordic mythology in its infancy. In fact, he believes that the artifacts offer clear insight into how the country's native legends evolved from Roman origins. Alongside the jewelry, Schytz also uncovered a number of Roman coins, including one dating from the reign of Constantine the Great, an emperor who ruled between 285 and 337. Interestingly, this indicates that gold was being hoarded in the region over a long period of time, not just during the late Iron Age. According to ArtNet News, the presence of the coins suggests that Jelling was located within an important trade network many centuries before Gorm and Harald came to power. And the size of the hoard implies that this was no backwoods outpost, it was clearly a location of some importance. In September 2021, experts decided to take a closer look at the spot where Schytz had uncovered his incredible hoard. Joining forces, researchers from the National Museum and the Vigelmuseum began excavating the field. And what they found has lent weight to the theory that Jelling was a significant site long before it was the seat of the first Danish kings. As the team excavated, they realized that there was much more to the site than first met the eye. In fact, they discovered that it had once been the location of an entire Iron Age village. According to TV Sid, experts believe that the golden hoard was originally hidden inside a longhouse, which has since been lost to time. But why would someone bury such a valuable treasure? And how had it remained undisturbed for so many years? Well, one theory is that the inhabitants of Iron Age Jelling feared that war was imminent and decided to hide their valuables for safekeeping. After all, they wouldn't have wanted any invading armies to get their hands on all that gold. Another interesting theory is that the gold was buried as an offering in an attempt to appease the gods. As we've heard, a volcano erupted in Iceland in 536, cloaking much of northern Europe in a cloud of ash. As a result, crops became difficult to grow, and the region was struck by a terrible famine. Today, experts believe that this period of hardship continued for many years, making life miserable for communities across the northern hemisphere. Writing at the time, the Byzantine scholar Procopius described a dread portent during which the sun was seemingly in eclipse. And his Roman contemporary Cassiodorus wrote of a winter without storms, a spring without mildness, and a summer without heat. Trapped in this hellish climate, unable to grow food, the people of northern Europe must have begun to panic. And so, some experts have theorized they made offerings of gold to the gods. With these gifts, they would have hoped to win the favor of whatever deities they believed in, perhaps persuading them to end the famine. Over the years, this theory's gained weight thanks to the discovery of various treasure troves dating back to the 6th century. In 2016, for example, a pair of amateur metal detectorists unearthed a stash of gold buried beneath a field in Jarno, an island near to Jutland in Denmark. Ultimately, archaeologists unearthed a total of 32 artifacts from the site, including jewelry, pearls and even a needle crafted from gold. According to the Vigelmuseum, experts believe that the hoard may have been intentionally sacrificed by a wealthy family hoping to save themselves from the horrors that were ravaging the land. It is tempting to conclude that the poor people who experienced the ash cloud and the rapid climate change desperately tried everything to avoid chaos, the Vigelmuseum's Mads Ravn explained in February 2019. Thus, gold comes on the scene as a precious sacrifice to the powers that be. The gold treasure on Jarno must have been laid down by a significant man, perhaps a great man, who was to show his power to the gods. So was the treasure found by Schytz another example of such a sacrifice? After all, if Jelling was a seat of power during the Iron Age, it'd make sense that its inhabitants, like those of Jarno, would have had gold to spare. And in the face of ongoing hardship, They may well have chosen to sacrifice some of their riches in an attempt to appease the gods. Whatever the origin of this particular hoard, its significance can't be denied. In fact, some have compared Schytz's discovery to that of the golden horns, which are among Denmark's most significant archaeological discoveries. Unearthed in Galahus, some 75 miles south of Jelling, these gilded artifacts are believed to come from the beginning of the 5th century. Discovered almost 100 years apart, in 1639 and 1734, these two horns bore intricate images and inscriptions that have contributed enormously to the study of early Scandinavian language. But in 1802 a goldsmith melted them down, hoping to profit from the raw material. So today, only copies of the artifacts remain, though they're still considered of great value. It is difficult to relate to the fact that it is almost as big as the golden horns, Schytz said of his discovery in an interview with TV Sid. But I listened to the museum people. And the experts certainly seem to agree on the significance of the treasure unearthed by this amateur detectorist. This is the biggest find that has come in the 40 years I have been at the National Museum, Bang Peterson explained. We have to go back to the 16th and 18th centuries to find something similar. It really is a wonderful find for an archaeologist. But how exactly did Schytz uncover something of such importance on one of his first attempts at detecting? It is the epitome of unlikely luck, Schytz admitted. Denmark is 43,000 square kilometers, and then I happened to choose to put the detector exactly where this find was. Yet it isn't the first time that an Iron Age hoard has been revealed thanks to the work of amateur treasure hunters. Back in September 2020, for example, a detectorist in Chelmsford, England, stumbled upon a stash of close to 1,000 coins dating back to the Iron Age. According to reports, he was out bird watching when he watched a feather drop to the ground and land near a flash of gold. Intrigued, he retrieved his equipment and soon unearthed a valuable stash. 4 years earlier, late in 2016, a pair of detectorists managed to unearth what's believed to be the oldest gold jewelry ever discovered in Britain. Consisting of 4 bands of twisted metal known as torques, this stash is also thought to date back to the Iron Age. But the lucky amateurs almost missed out on their life-changing discovery. According to The Guardian, the two detectorists had searched the field where the torques were unearthed before, only to leave empty-handed. In fact, their lack of success prompted them to abandon the pastime in favor of fishing, only going back to treasure hunting after a 20-year break. This time, though, they struck gold. But while there are certainly examples of detectorists getting lucky, finds such as Schytz's are still very rare. In 2022 the public will get a chance to take a peek at the impressive collection, which will form part of a Viking exhibit at the Vigelmuseum. Together with other carefully curated artifacts, the treasures will tell the story of Jelling and its vital role in Danish history over the years.